Welcome, everyone. Good evening. I'm David Veenstra. I'm on faculty at the University of Washington in the Choice Institute. I've been on faculty here for many years, a few decades, and I actually did one of these fellowship programs way back in, I think it was 97. So it's great to see you all here and glad that you're interested in our program. And we look forward to telling you a little bit about the different fellowships that we have. And then after we've done that, talking to you about any questions that you might have. I help coordinate. You've probably got emails from Marina Gano. She's our senior staff person who helps coordinate the fellowships. And I also work with Marina to help coordinate across our different programs with our different companies. And as you'll see, we have a variety of fellowship programs with different companies, with different mentors. I'm personally involved with the Genentech one, as you'll hear more about here. So first, we want to talk a little bit about HEOR, just kind of make sure everyone's kind of on the same page with what these fellowship programs are about. Then we're going to go through each of our the company fellowship programs that we have, talk about our partners, talk about what kinds of projects you might work on, and the mentors that are involved in that. We'll also then cover some of the logistics of the application process, and then we'll finish it up with a Q&A as noted there. And looks like everyone's kind of muted themselves or automatically on mute, so appreciate that. And just remember, when we get to the Q&A, get ready with that unmute button. So next slide. Okay. Stella.
Yes.
I'm going to hand over to you. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and Stella's just going to talk a little bit about what HEOR is.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Stella. I am a current second-year fellow here at University of Washington with Genentech. So what is HEOR? Regulatory approval is necessary but insufficient for patient access. After showing the safety and efficacy of the intervention during the clinical trials, HEOR demonstrates the value of the intervention to facilitate better patient access. There are multiple ways to demonstrate the value of an intervention. It could be by showing economic value and affordability using budget impact model or cost effectiveness analysis, describing treatment patterns and identifying limitations of existing treatments. We can demonstrate burden of illness and unmet need, real-world evidence to show the safety, efficacy, and comparative effectiveness and adherence. And lastly, patient-centered outcomes to show patient preferences, quality of life, and productivity.
Great. So that's kind of a very high-level overview, and you know, as you'll hear more about these programs, you know, the fellowship at UW, they all involve master's degree, and generally speaking, the foundation to be able to do what Stella talked about, we do some clinical epidemiology, some biostatistics, some economics, some quality of life research, and so kind of the ability to bring all those different fields together. That's what HEOR is, to inform value decisions. So not just about cost, not just about economics. So let's talk about our fellowship programs. Go ahead, next slide. So the Choice Institute is an institute where we focus on HEOR, and we're based in the Department of Pharmacy in the School of Pharmacy at the University of Washington, and stands for the Comparative Health Outcomes Policy and Economics Institute. And you can see that we have a focus on research, training, and service. And I think some of the things that set our program apart is we have kind of world-class faculty doing research that's very highly cited and look to kind of leading the methods and application in the field. Training program is very strong. We've been training post-PharmD fellows. As I mentioned, I did one 20-something years ago. So for decades, we have a long history of that. We also have a PhD program that's very strong. And then in terms of, really getting out there in service, we really believe in, the application of these approaches and influencing policy. It's very important. So we've been involved with managed care, AMCP. We've been involved with the ICER program and also engaged with some of what's going on at the national level with drug price negotiations with Medicare right now. So I think those are some of the things that set our program apart. Next slide. Some of the faculty involved. I see a great group of folks, and we'll tell you a little bit about who's associated with each of the different programs. And all these folks have a really strong history of training post-PharmDs in these fellowship programs. Next slide. You can see a bit about all the different presentations and publications, and up to 49 fellows now. So quite a long history at the Choice Institute. Next slide. So just some of the basics. There's a lot of these different fellowships across the country, and they kind of have different flavors, different approaches. Ours is the main thing that you should know is that you get a master's degree with our program. And so it's very important that you recognize that. And that involves 1 year of studying at the University of Washington to get that master's degree. And you can see the first bullet's kind of studying those different topics I talked about. You do a thesis project. We usually have you work on real world data analysis, claims analysis, working with big data sets. It's a good experience. Involves presenting at meetings and things like that. And we finished that, we finished that all up in 1 year. So that when you leave the University of Washington after your first year, you're kind of all set. You're all done with your master's degree. Then you move on in the second year, you get to do all kinds of fun stuff with what you learned in year one, working with the different HEOR teams at the different companies. You'll hear a little bit more detail about the types of projects that you might be involved in. The thing, usually, what's different from school is you're involved in these big teams, and you'll have like a development team, you have a commercial team, and they're both, the development team's trying to design these studies and these trials, the commercial team's trying to prove value, et cetera. And you're kind of, HEOR sits in between those two, which I personally found to be the funnest part of the fellowship. And you get to talk to both kind of the clinicians, the scientists, as well as people that are out there meeting with managed care folks, trying to provide them with stuff that they need. And so you get to really collaborate with all kinds of different people, as you can see there, from a medical affairs, market access, regulatory, clinical, et cetera. So that's typically a very exciting year. You can see that your as a fellow, your stipend, kind of like your salary, is provided. You do get paid. You have insurance, and there's some support for relocation, particularly your second year, moving to the companies in the second year, and you have some funds to go travel to a meeting, et cetera. Next slide. And we're happy to come back to questions on that. So I know it's kind of a lot all at first. Here are the different programs that we're going to be having. First off, we're at University of Washington. We're in Seattle, okay, not DC. You should know that. So Seagen is based in the Puget Sound area, so they're fairly local to us, which is great. The Genentech program based out of South San Francisco. AbbVie, you can see, has a few different options for their sites, ranging from Irvine to Illinois to New Jersey, and Bayer is also in New Jersey. So again, you'd spend your first year at UW Seattle, and then your second year at one of these sites, depending on which fellowship program that you were in. Next slide. So you can see, again, this is just reiterating the location. We have 1 Bayer slot, 2 for AbbVie, 2 for Genentech, and 1 for Seagen. I think you can see some of these are kind of based more in the US program versus the global program. And there's some distinctions there, although I don't think they're critical. And then, of course, a degree in pharmacy and some kind of relevant experience in HEOR classes or projects, things like that, are really the kind of students that apply and that we're looking for. Next slide.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah, so from here, we're going to have folks, fellows from the different programs who are either in the program or gone through the program, talk about the different programs. And so I think Jay and Zach, you're going to take AbbVie.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So my name is Jay, and I'm one of the second-year fellows with AbbVie. And I, with my co-fellow Zach, will be giving a brief overview of the AbbVie Fellowship. So as you can see from the slide, it's starting off with leadership over on the University of Washington side. Our faculty mentors for this year will be Chu and Jing. And then over on the AbbVie side, we have Jay Lee, who is an alumni of the fellowship program and one of our past legacy Allergan fellows. Next slide, please. Okay. So AbbVie accepts 2 fellows per cohort, and then this year is no exception to that. Our first-year fellows are Philman and Richard, who both started their first year in Seattle for their masters. And our second years are myself and Zach, who I will hand off for the next slide.
All right, thanks, Jay. So yeah, my name is Zach. I am the other second-year fellow with AbbVie. And so just briefly touching upon the different therapeutic areas, like AbbVie is a pretty big company, I guess you could say. And so they cover many different therapeutic areas. Where there's aesthetics, immunology, so that's rheumatology, dermatology, and gastro. And then oncology, I think they have a pretty robust blood cancer line. Eye care, neuroscience, so that's migraines, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and depression, and then general medicine. So really, I mean, you can come into these interviews and talk towards certain therapeutic areas that you are really interested in, and there is a high likelihood that AbbVie might have some work related for you if that is something that you're interested in. Then on the other side of that, some projects that they will involve you in really revolve around 3 larger buckets of PROs, RWEs, and economic modeling. And then additionally, they have opportunities for you to work in indirect treatment comparisons or other meta-analytic publications. So there's a lot of opportunities, very robust teams. So yeah, just coming in with an open mind, I think you'll go very far.
All right. Hey guys, my name's Arvind. I am the second-year Bayer Fellow, and Ryan on the left there is the UW mentor. He's been the mentor for a while for the Bayer program. And then this coming year on the Bayer side, on the UW side, so on the Bayer side, Todd is the VP of the DGOS team. So DGOS is Data Generation and Observational Studies. So that's what we call the HEOR, the US HEOR team here at Bayer. And then Rakesh is the senior director now, so he's the head of the DGOS research strategy team. So as I said, I'm the second-year fellow, and then Jake over there is the first-year fellow. Right. So same layout as for AbbVie. So on the left there we have the therapeutic areas. So at AbbVie, oh my gosh. So at Bayer, so we work across therapeutic areas at Bayer. So the team covers all of these areas. So it's more about business needs on what you're going to be in. So I mainly cover thrombosis, cardio, renal, and a little bit of oncology and women's health right now. So, but you can work in any of them, and I probably will be working in more of these therapeutic areas as we go. And then projects, there's dashboards, real-world evidence studies, AMCP dossiers, cost calculators, as well as systematic literature reviews. We mainly focus on retrospective real world evidence studies though on the team, but you can get a taste of any of those projects.
Hi, everyone. My name's Spencer, and I am the other second-year fellow with Genentech. Stella's my co-fellow. So as some people have alluded to, this is a similar layout, and I'll give an overview of the Genentech fellowship. In your first year, you will work with Dave and Asta Bonsal as your choice mentors. And in the second year, you'll be paired with with Genentech mentors, and Jennifer Whiteley, who is the head of the neuroscience and rare disease department, is kind of the liaison and helps pair the Genentech mentors with the current fellows. Next slide. These are our current fellows. Emma and Alexandra are the first year fellows at the Choice Institute now, just getting started over the summer. And then Stella and I are based in South San Francisco at the Genentech offices. Next slide. And again, similar layout to everyone's slides. These are kind of the options for the different therapeutic areas that we have at Genentech, as well as the projects. I will say, I think as Zach mentioned, it kind of depends if you are interested in certain therapeutic areas. Also, as Arvind mentioned, it depends on the business needs. So sometimes what you'll work on in your first year may continue in the second year. It may be different. I personally am working and was working in my first year in oncology. I'm also helping out with rare disease currently. And then same goes for the projects. And this is not an exhaustive list by any means. These are some of like the bread and butter projects. But just from personal experience, because Genentech is such a big company and there's a lot going on, most likely some of these projects are going on at all times. So if there's something you haven't seen or that you want to strengthen or get more experience on, the mentors are great within the company to kind of get more experience in those areas. And then I will pass it on to Jolt to talk about Seagen.
Thank you. Yeah, as can be seen on the slide here, my name is Jolt Hepp. I am the Senior Director within the HEOR group here at Seagen. I'm not a past fellow of this or a current fellow of the Seagen program, but I was a fellow a little over a decade ago in the UW Allergan Fellowship at the time. So I work closely with Josh Carlson, who's the program director on the UW side, who you work with in the first year. And then when you come on the second year, much like with the other programs, I would be your main point of contact. But of course, the whole team becomes available to you, and everybody's here kind of to make sure that you are applying all that you learned in the first year, as Dave was explaining earlier. Next slide. We currently have a fellow going through the program, Jennifer, and we have a couple of past fellows. We did have to put the program on hold for 1 year, but not before putting two great candidates through the program. Phoebe is actually still with us to this day. She is a manager within our group, and she actually reported to me for a couple of years and has been really excelling. So we really enjoyed having Phoebe and Jacob, and are very excited to have Jennifer, who just started this last summer. And then similar to everyone else, we have the same setup on the slide. You can see that Seagen is actually focused only on oncology. So it's a very specific oncology focused fellowship. We have 4 marketed products, 3 of which have launched in the last couple of years. And then Etcetris is kind of our legacy product that's been on the market for about 8 years. That's mostly in heme, versus the others are covering a number of solid tumors that they have been indicated for. So really across heme and solid tumor, lots of opportunity to work and get a really focused experience within oncology. And what we really make sure when the students come on board in their second year is that they're exposed to as much of the applied HEOR skills that they picked up in the first year. And you can see the list here, very similar to those that have been listed so far. You know, projects can vary from weeks to months that the student is with us. Everything from, you know, doing a quick literature search to, you know, doing, in-depth analyses of our PROs data in our clinical trials. That's actually something Phoebe started during her fellowship and continued into her role when she joined my team. So it was really exciting to see her really come into the program, kind of learning everything and then finding out what she's really passionate about. And that's what I see my role as the second year mentor, to make sure that we provide that experience so that you can kind of leave the experience feeling ready, and also knowing that that's what you want to do. So we create as many opportunities as possible. What's also really neat is that even as a fellow, you get exposure across and all the way up the company. So our fellows have presented to, you know, our chief medical officer and have had, really great experiences during their time here. So yeah, really excited to hear what you guys have as far as questions for us.
All right, thank you everyone for those overviews of each of the companies. My name is Tori, and I'm actually a PhD student. I'm a third-year PhD student, and my role is to support the master's program in various ways. I support Marina and Dave with administrative and communication type things, as well as helping support the first-year master's students as they're going through the program, whether it's troubleshooting or with their classes or with their thesis. So I'm happy to be here. This slide is just to kind of show you some of the places that some of our past fellows have ended up. So as you've heard mentioned throughout the different company presentations, a lot of our fellows end up either in the company that they did their fellowship in or at a different company. There are a lot of unique kind of paths that you can go after this fellowship. So this list is not an exhaustive list. It's just where some of our recent fellows have ended up. So you can see there's some at Neurocrine, some at AbbVie, Genentech, and Bayer, which are, our companies that we partner with for these fellowships. And then even some in the Army. So lots of different opportunities post-fellowship available to you. And what's cool too is we have a pretty robust alumni kind of network. So any of these past fellows are potential networking opportunities for you as well. So I just wanted to touch on a little bit of details for the application process for you. There's a more detailed guide available on the website. Each of the different fellowship websites, it's linked at the bottom, and it's also linked in the email that we sent you earlier today. But we just wanted to highlight a couple of the things. So you'll need to have your degree in pharmacy completed by July 1st, 2024. The application deadline is October 23rd, 2023, so coming up. You'll be notified whether you were selected for an interview by October 30th. And then interviews will be held virtually the week of November 6th. Offer notifications will be given after that, and then decisions will be requested by December 13th. And then all of the programs will start on July 1st of next year. So just some tips for the application process is to contact your recommenders early. It's helpful often to provide your recommenders with a little cheat sheet about yourself, about this program, why you're applying, why you're interested, and why you're a strong candidate. Submitting a strong, focused, and well-edited CV is key as well. Highlighting any projects relevant to HEOR in particular so that catches our attention. And then don't forget thank you emails for your recommenders and interviewers, and then be calm, be yourself. We want to get to know you in your application. How to apply? We will not be using the ASHP application process this year. You'll apply directly through the UW Graduate School. So you can go to the link shown on this slide. Again, that's linked on each of the fellowship websites for you as well. And you'll create a new profile, select that you're applying for a graduate program. This is the name of the program here shown for you: Pharmacy, Health Economics and Outcomes Research, Master's. And then quarter and year would be autumn 2024. And then within the application, you'll be able to let us know which fellowship programs you're applying to. You can apply to all 4, you can apply to 2 of them. It's up to you. So this is a screenshot of what the application looks like. So as I mentioned, you'd select graduate here, and then you'd select the Health Economics and Outcomes Research MS program. And then this is where you would select which fellowship programs you are applying to. So here you can see AbbVie is selected, and then you would select add a fellowship program, and you can add up to all 4 if you would like, and they're not ranked. So you're just letting us know which ones you're applying to. You're not letting us know what order you prefer for the programs. So as I mentioned, a detailed how-to document for filling out the application can be found on each fellowship website. And then just a reminder, all of your application materials need to be uploaded and submitted by the October 23rd deadline, and that includes the application fee, which is $85. There is an application fee waiver that is available. So there's more information at this link here. So you can go there and see about the qualification process if you would like to apply for an application fee waiver. So now we can transition to a period of Q&A. So you're welcome to raise your hand, and when I call on you, you can unmute and ask your question, or you can submit it in the chat and I'll read it for our panelists. These can be questions for Dave or Zolt as directors of the programs, or for any of our second-year fellows for details about their experience in the program. So feel free to raise your hand or submit questions in the chat. While people are thinking, I will just ask a sample question. What qualities make someone a strong candidate for this program?
Yeah, Tori, I can take a first shot at that. And I think we're looking for a combination of skills. So you have to have pretty decent quantitative skills to go through courses like the biostats and the epi and the econ. But you also have to have pretty good communication skills, good at writing, presenting, and then last thing really being interpersonal skills, really that ability to work with others in challenging situations and figuring out ways to balance the needs of different stakeholders. And Joel, or anyone else, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think that was really nice, Dave. I totally agree on all of those points. The only one I would add is just a passion and love for HEOR. I think being able to articulate why you want to do this, why you want to take an extra 2 years of your life to study further past your PharmD. I think that's always important. And we've had people that look great on paper and then not be able to, during the interview, explain exactly why and how they found this path. So just one additional piece there.
Yeah, perhaps the most important. Thanks.
Great, thank you both. It looks like we have a hand raised. Nisan, if you want to unmute and ask the question.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for your presentation. My name's Nisan. Let's see a little bit about me. I got my degree in music before I went to pharmacy, and I'm a 4th-year student at the University of Connecticut. And my question is, I was wondering, especially from the second-year fellows, what do you think the advantages are of doing sort of a 1+1 program where you get your master's first and then going to the university, as opposed to some of the other fellowships in HEOR, which are just 2 years within the company itself?
I can try answering that first.
Go ahead.
One of the things that I noticed pretty much almost immediately was that the education through the master's, at least with the main course series of being epidemiology, biostats, and then other HEOR methods that you're taught, I was being asked questions by other teammates in RWE or other statistic positions, and they're coming to HEOR asking us for feedback and insights, and I didn't feel completely unable to do that. Like I was able to speak my own opinions and mine kind of almost instantly. And it was at that point that I realized just how much they prepare you with the master's program. And I think just giving you that time, that dedicated time to kind of hone your craft before sending you out really prepares you well for when rubber hits the pavement, you're ready to get going.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I was definitely wondering how prepared you felt when you went into your second year, whether it was, you know, a real world applicability, so to speak. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that question. Catherine, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to be here and share information about the program. My question is for the fellows is there anything that you would recommend now having finished your first year at UW that students should try and brush up on or try and prepare themselves for starting what is a very different type of education from coming out of the PharmD program? Anything that we, could do to prepare or make sure that we have a really strong start for starting, I guess, any HEOR fellowship, but in particular, this one that's really strong academically.
I can try and take this one. In short, I'd say no. It's a very rigorous and robust curriculum, and I think that it really complements your thesis well, and it was really thoughtfully planned throughout the year. And so a lot of the stuff will be new, and it will build on some maybe courses in pharmacy school, but you're definitely not expected to know these things coming to your interview. But I think some of the qualities that Dave and Jolt talk about is just really having like the analytical skills and critical thinking skills as a researcher to show that you might excel and succeed in these courses. But literal coursework, I would say no. But if anyone else wants to chime in.
I'll just say I agree with Spencer on that. I think it's a very comprehensive program for the first year, and like you're applying your skills from the classroom to projects at all times. So you learn it really well, and you're not expected to know stuff beforehand, but you will learn it in a pretty quick fashion.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
All right, thank you. Next question, Amity.
I had a couple questions kind of related to each other, but the first one was just kind of a follow-up question in response to Spencer's comments. What does the workload kind of look like in relation to that first year where you're taking all the classes?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think this is kind of a follow-up of the very first question that was asked. But because this is a 1+1 program, your sole responsibility is to be a student and to understand the material and to complete the thesis. And so some of the other programs that want you to balance getting an online master's or being in the company, this is different, and it allows you to really learn the material. And so I'd say the work-life balance, similar to pharmacy school, there are periods where you're more busy depending on class projects, but it's nothing that I don't know your exact experiences, but I would assume haven't encountered before, especially with rotations and such. And then it really allows you to dive into the second year as well, kind of having that foundation and then focusing on the company experience instead of having to juggle all of those things at once.
That's helpful. Thank you for expounding. My other question was in relation to something Dave had mentioned about kind of the distinctions between the global versus US programs. So I was just curious, what are some of those distinctions?
Yeah, and I'll let those of you working in the different programs weigh in too. On the global side, you're kind of looking at overall strategy across different countries. And so you're generally trying to prepare foundational work that can be utilized by those different countries. So it's a lot of coordination across those different countries. and doing fundamental, important work, building cost effectiveness analyses, developing data sets, running data analyses, developing strategy, things like that. The US obviously will tend to focus more specifically on the US, but you tend to do those same activities. I think, in my opinion, there's not always huge differences, and in part because the US is about half the global market. So the US is really important and carries a heavy weight, regardless of where you work. And if you're in the US group, you still need to make sure that what's happening in the different countries and how are you coordinated with the global group. But I look forward to what others have to say about that.
I can piggyback on what Dave said. So Genentech is a US focused HEOR program. So all the health economists, all the team members that I work with is based in US, and our studies are only focused in US settings as well. But we do some collaboration with the global folks. So it's Roche. So there is a real world data science team within Roche, and they're doing an exact same study that what we're doing in ophthalmology team, but in UK. And you have a collaboration opportunities with them, and I will be presenting a data with them as well. So even though it says it's a US HEOR, and then all the study settings that you will be conducting or doing will be in US, there will be some kind of a collaboration with the global team, especially in Genentech.
I think I can also add on. So,
you go, Jay.
Yeah, a little bit. So in my second year, I started off with US role, and then I recently had the global role last 2 weeks. And I think Dave summarized it pretty well. Another thing that I like to be mindful about is HTA bodies and what their requirements are. So I found that different countries have needs that they want to data the studies are done, and it's very little to a lot, and kind of managing that overall strategy, communicating with different stakeholders, about school.
Yeah, just one last thing I'll add is I think, at least at Bayer, I don't know if this applies to all companies, but the global team, I think, has a bigger focus on modeling cost effectiveness than the US team, just because there's HTA bodies across Europe and across the rest of the world, whereas the US doesn't have a centralized HTA body. So I think the modeling cost effectiveness comes more into play in the global market than in US, where we focus a lot on real world evidence studies, in my team at least.
One last thing I can kind of tie it all together then is there's opportunities to spread out in terms of US and global, and then to Arvin's point, it depends on what sort of things you need to communicate. And so that's one thing that I've been picking up on recently is for certain strategy team meetings, there will be US and global medical affairs as there are two different teams within AbbVie. And so they have different things that they're all worried about, and you're trying to communicate your study and how it can be useful for them. And so you have to really, it's interesting to try to game plan how you're going to disseminate important information that you want to get across, that you can get buy-in from everybody else. And so you get an idea of the certain things and aspects that they're looking for their own business strategic needs. So, yeah.
Great.
Thank you. It was good hearing all of your perspectives.
Thanks for the question. All right, we've got one question in the chat, and then I'll go to the next hand raised. The question in the chat was regarding the thesis during your first year. How will the research question be generated? Is it business needs, fellows' interest, etc.?
Yeah, it's a bit of a combination of the both. I think and each one of the programs varies a little bit, but generally there's kind of the disease area, a particular therapeutic area of interest that the company's working in, and then it might depend a little bit on exactly, which mentor in the company you're working with. And then, we obviously want the fellows to pick something that they're interested in. So it's kind of melding those together. I think the important thing to realize is ultimately, in that first year, you're a University of Washington graduate student. And so you're going to need to work on something that is kind of your own thesis and that is publishable. Those are some of the requirements on the academic side. But it usually turns out to be a very nice marriage because on the company side, the probably most of the time you're working with somebody who knows an incredible amount about the particular therapeutic area, and they also know an incredible amount about all of the HEOR work that has been done, and then most critically, kind of what hasn't been done, what needs to be done. And so they kind of really help identify and steer both the mentors on the UW side and the students into areas that are kind of ripe for doing work. And then, the UW mentors really work pretty closely with, the technical aspects of doing that work and writing the thesis and all that other stuff. And the mentors of the companies kind of in that first year serve more like these great consultants that we have access to.
All right, looks like next question was Cindy.
Hi, my question is more about for the second year fellows. I'm curious, what are some, as you just finished your first year, and obviously the goals for the first year, I think, is to, do well with your master's and completing your thesis. I'm curious, with your second year, what are some specific goals that you have set like within your for your year ahead of you in the industry setting, and how has your mentor helped you support these goals?
I can start. That's a great question that I should probably think about more. But I think one of the things for me that I wanted to feel comfortable leading my own projects, making the decisions. And I think some of the research decisions, and I think some of this also comes from your first year as well. You're really in charge of your thesis. You work with your mentors to talk through certain ideas and understand the reasons why behind it. And that, I feel like, gave me some of the confidence to do the same within the company. You are going to be the expert somewhat when you get to the company, especially if you're leading projects. So that was one goal for me, is to lead some of the projects as well as kind of make some of those earlier decisions. And I think I can only speak for my mentor at Genentech. She's done a great job of kind of giving me the visibility and putting me in a place to do so, and also giving me the autonomy to lead those projects. So I'd say, in short, that's like a very high level goal, but I definitely feel supported that they're looking at us coming out of this fellowship as an employee that they would, potentially want to hire, and not just a fellow or a student. So I think that's important.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, I can add to that. So for me, like, same thing with Spencer, like leading my own projects, but specifically like getting posters, abstracts with my name on them out before the end of the year. So that's like making meaningful contributions to multiple projects we're going on, and hopefully presenting a poster at a conference or something like that.
It was the same for me too. I think that's especially like leading study, and me and my manager, I think the beginning of the second year of the fellowship, we kind of sat down and worked through like a problem plan, and I just kind of gave them different types of projects that I was interested in and I wanted to lead. And then going from there, he kind of, for the projects that were available based on business needs, he had me lead. And then for those types of experiences that I wouldn't be able to lead, he had me as like an observer, or he would give me some connections that I could talk to people with. So if you have like a good idea of what you're interested in, I think the manager and the company will work with you to support that and support your learning.
Great, thank you. Nissen, it looks like you had another question.
Hi, thank you. So I have a couple of questions, if that's okay, unless somebody else's question comes up. So the first one is the relocation benefits were mentioned earlier, but it seemed a little bit more vague about the first year. For someone like me from Connecticut, that's a bit far away. I was just wondering what what the relocation looks like for a first year fellow, unless it's like company dependent, or just wondering how that works.
It is a little bit company dependent, so they're all a little bit different. For the Genentech one, there's no relocation first year, but generous the second year. And the other fellows, I don't know, you guys can weigh in. I don't remember all the different programs.
Yeah, Bayer's a equal amount the first year and the second year. So
AbbVie is an amount that you use for both years.
Okay, thank you. My next question was, are there any, is there any teaching, are there any teaching opportunities in the first year, or is it just strictly just student work?
There aren't a lot of teaching opportunities, in large part because you are going to be busy. So, but there are some more in the second year, and there's really some nice opportunities for mentorship and training. And some of our fellows help out in that first summer that you're there in Seattle. We do like what we call like a database coding boot camp. And Tori's been kind of leading that, but we have our second year fellows come in and provide advice and guidance on that. And then also you serve as a mentor in your second year, an informal mentor to the first years. There's not really time to go give a lecture in therapeutics or something like that. So it's more in your second year. Once those first years are looking up to you, there's a lot of great opportunities.
Okay, thank you. And my last question, or my last point was, David, you mentioned earlier that the University of Washington is involved with policy. I was wondering if what involvement the fellows specifically have with policy during the program.
Yeah, I think that the main thing is that they benefit from the experience of the faculty and kind of the perspectives and how things are applied. We've probably, like Josh Carlson, there's a program out of Boston called ICER, the Institute for Clinical Economic Review, and they produce these estimates of value that are then often used by managed care folks. And Josh Carlson runs a modeling group. It's very intensive. They do a lot of cost effectiveness modeling. And once in a while, there maybe has been a little opportunity for a student to get involved with that. But I can't emphasize enough, in that first year, between taking classes and working on your thesis project, you're not going to have time for a whole lot else. So you're going to be very busy, and I'll let the fellows who've actually been through it recently weigh in if I'm incorrect about that. I stand corrected. But
I mean, one of the classes we took was health policy, our last quarter in spring, where Sean Sullivan and Ryan Hansen would bring in these are two guys that have been in the field for a long time as well. And so they know a lot of people, and a lot of people just around internationally even. And so they would bring in these really smart folks to just talk about current topics in health policy trends. And then that class is structured in a way that they get you to start thinking of solutions to policies. And so it gets you in, it's a safer environment to kind of just play around in the sandbox, where, you can you're really just supposed to think about how a policy decision could have lasting influences from a regulatory perspective. And so that was really the main experience that we got here, I would say.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
I'd like to encourage any of you that you might have a question, maybe a little bit shy about asking. Don't worry, we get all kinds of different questions. We'd be happy to address any of those.
Quick question. Let's say you have experience coding already in a high proficiency. Is there any way to take higher level classes?
I think the short answer is yes. A lot of our fellows typically maybe don't have that much coding experience, so they're taking like an intro to R course or something, but we've had some fellows that they walked in the door and they knew quite a bit of coding already, and so they had opportunity to take some advanced stuff at the University of Washington.
Excellent, thank you.
Any other questions?
I had a quick question that kind of piggybacks off of one of Mason's questions of if you guys have seen any of the health policy things that you learned in your courses applied in your HEOR work at your respective companies.
Yeah, I think, and one of the things that maybe wasn't touched on with the health policy work, another benefit of the faculty being so involved with health policy is some of the seminar speakers as well as the course. And so I feel like we learned a lot, especially in the time of the IRA when new guidance was coming out weekly, monthly. And so I felt like we were really kind of on the forefront of understanding some of these things and understanding the language that is very important to our field. And so from that perspective, when a lot of these conversations have come up, at least internally at Genentech, I feel very aware of the language and understanding potentially like the perspective that we might be interested in, some of the value elements. And so I think not directly just because so much of the IRA is ambiguous, but I'd say just from a standpoint of like having a foundation of what's going on, it was really helpful. And I feel like we were in a unique position having that exposure in our first year.
Yeah, and I'll just say congratulations to being interested in this field, because there's such incredible opportunities out there right now. And I think the whole issue going on right now with the IRA and CMS drug price negotiation, there was just an article today in the Wall Street Journal where CMS is hiring like 100 people. A lot of those, they're looking for these pharmacoeconomist people they've never hired before. And last week, we just had our corporate advisory board where we have the leaders from HEOR programs come to Seattle and give us advice about our training programs and stuff, probably people from over 20 different companies. The level of interest and engagement and enthusiasm with what's going on in this field, where things are headed, what's happening with IRA, et cetera, was dramatic. And so there's just going to be wonderful opportunities for those of you that get training in HEOR.
And then another one I would just call out, in addition to IRA, which is a huge deal, obviously, there are also changes going on globally. And that's one of the things I'm working on, and I would definitely be considering, somebody who's interested in policy to pull into helping us kind of learn and shape our strategy around what's happening in the EU, where they are moving from individual country HTA reviews to combined assessments of new products that are coming to the market and making decisions that's going to then affect 26 countries within the European Union. And, what does that mean from an evidence generation perspective, where we had very clear guidelines from each of the countries? Now there's going to be one general guidance, but we're still going to have to meet each individual country's needs. So it's going to be a very interesting time over the next 4 years. I think this is going to be coming into play in 2026. So there's going to be a lot of things that global pharmaceutical companies are going to have to do to, just like with the IRA, to make sure that our evidence generation, aside from the clinical trial, that we're doing all of the things that HEOR has a huge role in.
Great, thank you. All right, there's one question in the chat, and I think this is probably a good question to end on. So this is for the second year fellows. What has been your favorite memory being part of the Choice Fellowship so far? And while you're answering that question, I'll go ahead and put up our contact information in case anyone wants to send any additional follow-up questions. But again, the question was favorite memory being part of the Choice Fellowship so far.
I would say that during my first year, we all went to ISFOR, like all the fellows and also faculty members. And there is a UW reception happening where all the UW faculty members, but also the alumni of the program come to the reception. So like that's a great networking opportunity as well. But I would say that was my favorite memory, just attending ISFOR in general, but also going through UW reception for a great networking opportunity.
Yeah, I was going to say ISPOR as well, so that's really fun. And then I think just really all the events like happy hours, networking events, all those things, you get to meet like the PhD students, you get to talk to the faculty, HR professionals from that are affiliated with the UW, even if they didn't go to the program, and you just get such a large network and meet so many interesting people. So I think that's the best part of the program till now for me.
I think also just spending time with my co-fellows, maybe earlier in the year before we got really busy, we were able to just focus on getting to know each other. You guys lean on each other a lot during the year. And then these are going to be, your colleagues. And so you have like this really great year to bond and to kind of build that connection and friendship. So, yeah, I'll end with the corny answer.
I think also, along with all of that, finishing the thesis was also a very rewarding experience as well. It's something that you've been working on for like a whole year. To kind of see that, to finish that project and be done. I think that was very rewarding.
Well, if everybody's answered, then I should answer as well. My thing that I liked was there's like a Wednesday seminar thing that is basically just like hot topics in HEOR, and the PhD faculty and co-fellows all get together and just listen to a in-house seminar for about an hour. And I just thought it was pretty cool how, like, towards the middle and end of the year, it's just neat seeing like a big group of people that are all involved in the same field and have like pretty similar interests, and they're all like brilliant geniuses, and just kind of, I don't know, you're just like passing by, making comments, saying like, hey, what's up, how things going, yada yada. Just like that small catch-up time was pretty nice. So.
All right, thank you all for your answers. Does anyone have any closing comments or remarks that you want to leave our attendees with?
No, I'd just say, thanks again for attending. It's a really exciting field. There's lots of opportunities out there, and we hope that you'll consider the University of Washington.
All right, thank you everyone for attending. Feel free to reach out with any additional questions.
Thanks everyone.
Bye-bye.